NFL drafts on Thursday. It's night number one, round number one. What are you living under a rock right now? The NFL always controls us here, and we'll be watching, cheering, and also some big moments for front offices that really need to get to at least an AFC Championship game or a Super Bowl. Let's hear from Brandon Beane talking about the NFL draft. Hey,
No,
Joe,
I
Joe,
agree.
tell me about it. Tell me about
I
Brandon
agree.
Beane. Tell me about Brandon Beane.
I agree.
What do we got?
Everything he said, I agree with. Absolutely correct. Everything. I am spot on with him, and I were like brothers with different mothers.
All right, now let's see what he actually said on video. How about that?
Yeah, I think it's hard. It's like anything. You kind of do a rundown. These are the guys that we're pretty sure there's less than 1% chance are going to be there, barring something, a gas mask or something popping up. So if you guys want to put any players that are really talented, something out there using AI to help us get them, we'll take them. But
he's right about that. When you don't draft at the top of the heap, you hope somebody falls down with a scandal on draft night so you can grab them and use that to your advantage. He's under a lot of pressure in Buffalo. You just wait those Josh Allen years. And also, Joe, let's not forget, going from the old stadium to the new stadium this year, a lot of pressure on those Buffalo Bills.
And there is, and especially now that McDermott is gone, and they chose, Beane over McDermott. A lot of players in that locker room not happy. We'll see what happens here, but the biggest thing they have to worry about, Don, is don't reach. Like, whatever you're doing, do not reach for a pick just because you feel like you have to appease everybody else. So, again, most of the teams are built, Donnie, in the second, third, fourth, fifth round. That's where it's all about. There's only so many guys that are actual difference makers at the top of the draft anyway, and we know this.
So many teams make so many mistakes. Like the first, I always used to joke, Joe, like the first round should be given over to the fans because the fans will take the biggest name on the board at that time and usually outdraft the team where they try to outsmart themselves. Like outside of a quarterback, take the best player on the board. Oh, we're loaded at defensive end. The best player by far is the defensive end. Oh, we'll go with the tackle who will be out of the league in 2 years, but this defensive end will be a superstar. Just make the base pick you can in the first round. The most talented guy, take him off the board. How about this news from LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier? Now, here's what I get a little bit of a laugh at, right? So he goes to the NFL Combine, and they find a cyst on his spine, which was part of the cause of his oblique pain, which happened in 2025, where he was one of those guys that might be number one overall, had the pain, didn't have a great season, and now he's just hoping to get drafted somewhere, let's just say, in the mid-rounds. But why didn't LSU's athletic training staff actually pick up on this might be an issue? Why did they have to wait to the NFL Combine to see exactly what was hurting him?
Yeah, well, a lot of issues at LSU here over the last year, Donnie. So it's kind of hard to figure out who was doing what and where. But, this was, again, the issue that we heard a lot of whispers about Brian Kelly and company, right? Where it didn't necessarily give to, what, about his players. And once he was gone, who knows what you had going on there at LSU. But there's no excuse for it at all.
By the way, Bill Belichick used to be a maniac, and I always remember this quote here. Do you remember, Joe, before we had the slotted first-round picks, like you actually had to sign your player before you drafted him to make sure that it was okay and cost-effective for you? So we'd know the first 3 picks in the draft before draft night because you had to negotiate those $100 million contracts. Now they're slotted. You take the player, he knows what he gets. And Bill Belichick always used to say, I'd rather have the first pick in the second round than the first pick overall. And that's the stupidest thing I ever heard until you realize the second-round guy was $3 million and the first-round guy was $100 million at number one overall. But how about John Schneider saying, we'd like to trade down from 32 since we only have 4 picks in this year's draft? That means, Joe, trading out of 32, stacking up a couple 2s and 3s here and building that team. Quote, it's no secret with us.
And who's done it better than he has over the years, good. Right? I mean, the guy's one of the best in the NFL there. And, there are guys that say, hey, I got no problem. We know what we have. We know what we need. And we're just, whatever's available when we get there, that's how we're going to do it. The scouting, if you do your homework and you're good at it prior to the draft, Donnie, then the draft becomes a very simple process for guys like Schneider.
Exactly. It's like how many extra darts? Like, okay, I got one dart to throw. And the next guy goes, well, I got 3 darts to throw. And he'll probably beat your 1 dart here. That's stacking up players here that you think can help you. And again, not everybody works out in the NFL, but the more players you bring in, the more players probably have a chance to work out for you. Colts wide receiver Alec Pierce, you know him. He got a monster contract in free agency. 4 years, $114 million. But, Joe, an ankle procedure that's going to keep him out 3 months. So he won't be at OTAs, but they say he should be ready for training camp.
Well, it's funny because he's been a guy, Donnie, when, he's had some injury issues last couple of years, but there is no doubt the guy elevates that offense to he stretches the field. He makes big play after big play. You just gave him a boatload of money. You better make sure that he's 100% whenever he's ready to play here this year. And they're going to need him because the guy's a difference maker.
We're talking in codes here for the New York Giants also, Joe. How about this? Let's read between the lines. The Giants have received trade calls centered around edge rusher Kayvon Thibodaux for the last few months, but is now considered less likely to move him after the team's blockbuster trade that sent Dexter Lawrence to the Bengals. I read this as, we're taking calls, but everybody keeps trying to give us a 4th-round draft pick here. Yeah, he's off the market because we don't want to trade him. No, he's off the market because you're not getting a 1st or 2nd-round pick like you wanted for him, like you got for Sexy Dexy.
Exactly correct. Everybody's tradable, though, right, Donnie? Isn't that how it is? It provided you meet our price. If you don't meet our price, then he's not tradable, then, is he? And that's kind of where we're at right now. But I do think draft night's going to be interesting as far as trades and other things go. And then the immediate aftermath of the draft is also going to be a very interesting period here. So I wouldn't say never yet. There are some teams I think that probably think they can find somebody like that in the draft, but time will tell.
That's like that PR move. Like, right, we're not getting the right offers. The draft is coming up. All right, he's off the market. And then the team calls, all right, what's it really going to take to get this guy so we can settle and move him out of here? We'll find out on draft night. There will be some trades that are going to be like, whoa, didn't see that one coming. Maybe Thibodaux, we should have saw coming here. How about Jimmy Garoppolo? Sometimes you look at a quarterback and be like, yeah, he played for a while. He did have some success, but success is defined as, Joe, Super Bowl championships, how many rings you put on your finger, but more importantly, how much money did you put in your bank account? Rams free agent Jimmy Garoppolo, considered their top option as a backup quarterback, is now considering retirement, which probably means you better start upping some of that pay if you want me to come back. Jimmy G, who has started 64 games in his 12-year career, it's amazing he's been around for 12 years, has made $156 million. That's pretty good pay.
Yeah, and he's and has not had to get hit an awful lot, right, Donnie? I mean, that's amazing.
No.
He gets to, he gets to sit there and date supermodels, bank $100 million, and then really never even get his uniform dirty. It's kind of the biggest. It's the greatest gig I think I've ever seen anybody pull off.
Who was it? Emmanuel Sanders that he overthrew in the Super Bowl that if he just connected that they would have won, and yet another 10-point lead for Shanahan in the Super Bowl up in smoke. It happens. I get it. But I like this one here. Remember J.J. McCarthy coming into the pros? They told you, one of the greatest leaders we've ever had. Well, granted, he might not be leading anything but the scout team. Here's Justin Jefferson talking about him.
Yeah. My first reaction was just, it's really good to kind of get some good talent in the room to kind of give a little spark in that room, to kind of see a competitive edge and from those guys to really lock in and to, do what we're expecting them to do, which is to come in and, to be that guy. And, we need that one guy for this team. So I'm definitely excited for that room, excited to see what those guys have in store for us in training camp.
Joe, he's basically telling us, thank goodness we finally got a quarterback in this room so I can get back to being the best wide receiver in football. That's what I heard.
Hilarious. That might have been the best dig I have heard without actually mentioning a name or saying anything, but read between the lines.
Read between the lines is right here. Kyler Murray, you're starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, and their lead receiver's like, yeah, I'm good with that. Right back at it here. Prediction Markets Edge on the early line. Hot topics, Joe. Look, we like to talk about the NBA. It's pertinent tonight. We like to talk about Major League Baseball. They'll be playing tonight. NBA action? Absolutely. You say, well, what about the NFL? The games aren't going to start till September. Joe, the draft is this week, and we got some business to get down to with an AFC approach today. The Kansas City Chiefs, you are on the clock, Joe. And if you are the general manager, Where are we going with our first position drafted here? The Chiefs, understandably, good defense. Spagnuolo's the defensive coordinator. Patrick Mahomes coming back from a devastating knee injury. He wants to start game number one. The one thing we've noted about the Chiefs over the past couple of years, it's like musical chairs on their offensive line. Do they go that direction? If they do, Joe, in the Kalshi marketplace, that's only listed at a 45% chance. You know the leader, defensive line / edge pass rusher at 70%. And that's recently, in the past few days, Joe, has seen a spike there.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting here with Kansas City because you gotta here we are talking about drafts with Kansas City, which doesn't feel right. But you know, they're at that point now where they do have some holes to fill. They've got some questions, and you got to believe that Andy Reid and company, they've been doing this a while. They are going to fill whatever needs they have with whoever is left on the board. They're one of those teams, Donnie, where I don't second guess it. I think they have a need. They're going to take the best player on the board, no matter who it is. The only question is, do they like somebody so much they might be willing to maybe make a move on a little earlier? Time will tell here, but I think they're just going to start plugging and playing with the best players on the board at the position the most.
Roughly 45 minutes ago, Joe, defensive line / edge pass rusher on the Kalshi marketplace was trading at 43%. Do you know what that chance is now up to, as we just talked about, Joe? 70%. That's a spike in the last hour. The closer that we get toward the draft, maybe more leaks out there, something to keep an eye on at this point. The Baltimore Ravens will do the same thing. Hey, that's Lamar Jackson on offense. Always can use a few different handy-dandy toys for him. Or Jesse Minter, new head coach, defensive guy, first position drafted. Leader right now, Joe, for them, that's actually offensive line at 60%, tight end at 22%, wide out at 21%. But right now, Joe, leading, that's offensive line.
And that makes total sense, right? Because, yes, you've got to protect Lamar Jackson here, and you haven't exactly done that all that well. Injuries have been a big problem for the Ravens offensive line-wise over the last couple of seasons, Donnie. So that makes sense. But this isn't exactly a very big, heavy draft with offensive linemen here. But at the same time, they couldn't sack and get to the quarterback at all last year, which was another problem. So it would not shock me if Eric DeCosta and company there with the Ravens may decide to go. There's more defensive talent, I think, than offensive line talent. I think defense is the way they're going to go.
No surprise here for the next team. And again, we're not just picking out random teams that we think can excel, make a playoff run, and possibly win the AFC Championship game and into the Super Bowl. The Buffalo Bills, a lot of pressure. We saw already in hour number one, hey, Josh Allen and the boys getting back to work, as a lot of people are going back that mandatory offseason training. So many teams are starting that up this week, and they're focused on the Sabres. But the general manager, which is Brandon Beane, he's got to be focused on maybe improving that offense. No longer Sean McDermott, a defensive-minded head coach. It's Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, now the head coach. You look at the Kalshi marketplace, Joe, the one position sticking out right now as the favorite, of course, it's wide receiver, which they can't seem, quite frankly, to get right for Josh Allen. 67% chance here that they pick wide receiver with their first player drafted here. What do you think about that?
Well, don't forget, they did acquire DJ Moore, right, in the offseason. So they kind of went out and added that spot there. I think it's going to be interesting because I think they need defensive help, Donnie. I think they don't know what's going on with Bosa. Is he coming back? They need some help. There are more defensive players here that are available. And I think the Bills have one pick round at number 26. That might be the best available spot on the board left here. And I think there's definitely some needs on the defensive side. It's easy to think maybe they go wide receiver, but I think with the DJ Moore move, I think it could be defense here at that point in the draft.
Look, when you're always in the midst of a Super Bowl run, at least you think so, even though Buffalo hasn't gotten to a Super Bowl in a long time, you just take the best player available to help that football team. And Josh Allen eventually will figure it out. You don't want to last time you reached for a wide receiver, it was Keon Coleman. How'd that work out? Don't do it again, Buffalo. Best player available, take him here. Cincinnati, how about this one, Joe? Well, they used the first-round pick, number 10 overall, to say, we already want Dexter Lawrence. We're beefing up that defensive line. They still need so much help on that defense here that if you're looking, the first two positions that are the favorites here on the Kalshi marketplace for the Bengals, cornerback safety, 47%, linebacker, 40%. It looks like, Joe, still, even with giving up that top pick that they had here for defensive line help, they're going to need more help on defense, and that's what the prediction markets are letting us know.
Absolutely. They are going to need and they need some secondary help too, because that's been a big problem for them a lot. So, but there are some very good linebackers. I know Rodriguez, the linebacker from Tech, has been rumored here that Cincinnati really likes him. Couple of offensive linemen as well, obviously, to protect Burrow. You can never have enough of those. But yeah, I would not shock me if secondary is the spot that Cincinnati looks.
How about the New England Patriots here, Joe, making a Super Bowl run last year? Maybe need a little bit more firepower. Looks like they're probably going to get A.J. Brown, but it won't be a draft pick this year. Probably going to be next year or the year after, which means where do they go for some help? The offensive line rebuilt that. You got tight ends out there that are decent. You're going to get A.J. Brown as a wide receiver. You signed Romeo Doubs as well. Your backfield is set. Your quarterback is set, Joe. You got to be leaning towards defense, right? Cornerback safety trading at 45% as a contract. Defensive lineman, edge pass rusher, 59 cents here. Offensive lineman, 40 cents here. I think, Joe, they're going defense here because that offense should be able to be taken care of once they get A.J. Brown.
Yeah, and it really depends at this late in the draft, right? In the first round, Donnie, with where they're picking. It all depends on what happens early on. If there's a run on edge rushers or defensive guys, right? And all of a sudden now you got nothing left but maybe some wide receivers and a tight end, well, then that's the direction you're going to go, right? You're going to pick whoever is on the board at the time. And don't discount maybe some offensive line help, too. They built that offensive line. They got some young guys, but they got to keep adding as well, because that offensive line towards the end of the season wasn't doing a great job of protecting, Drake May. So that also could be where they head.
Could be, but that team is looking to take that next step. Got to the Super Bowl, not happy, revamping the offense, getting a good wide receiver, and away they go with Vrabel, who's having a lot of issues, to say the least, here with his football season just getting underway. But we'll be right back on PMA with more Hot Topics.